Alright guys, question 8. This is why I always say that we must first pay attention to the question, to what's asking us. Write the questions with the superlative form of the adjective and ever plus the present perfect. Okay, so we have to do two things here. We have to remember the superlative form of the adjectives in the question, in the question, but also add ever plus the present perfect. Okay, so always pay attention to what's asking, and we have an example here. Who generous person you meet? Look, who's the most generous person you've ever met? See? So this is the present perfect with ever. So in all of them, in all of the others, we must do the same. So let's go. So we have what difficult language you learned. So what's the most difficult? What's the most difficult language? And again, you've ever learned. Just say learned. Learned. What's the most difficult language you've ever learned? Okay, you've ever learned. Let's go. 3. What good restaurant you be to? So, what's the best? This is the superlative, right? Good is irregular, so the most difficult because this is a long adjective. The best because this is an irregular adjective. What's the best restaurant? What's the best restaurant you've ever, the best participle of be, been to? Right? So, what's the best restaurant you've ever been to? What's the best restaurant you've ever been to? What expensive gadget you buy? Again, pay attention. It's like a formula. What's the most expensive? What's the most expensive gadget you've, again the same, you've ever, by the past participle, ever bought. Okay, you've ever bought. What's the most expensive gadget you've ever bought? What cold place you visit? So, what's the... Pay attention. Cold is a short adjective. So we say the coldest. Look the presence of est. Okay? What's the coldest place you've, again, ever... Visit is a regular verb. I just add ed, so visited. Okay? What's the coldest place you've ever visited? Okay? 6. What long trip you taken? Okay? Nice, because it's supposed to be just take. But here's the answer already for you. So, what's the same, long is a short adjective, the longest. Okay, what's the longest trip? What's the longest trip you've ever taken? What's the longest trip you've ever taken? Okay, what's the longest trip you've ever taken? Now we have what delicious food you eat. It's so, what's the most delicious? What's the most delicious food? And now, you've ever... Eat, the past is just to say eaten. Eaten. Right? So what's the most delicious food you've ever eaten? What beautiful place you've been to? So what's the most beautiful place you've ever... Look, what's the most beautiful place you've ever, again, been to? Okay, been to. What's the most beautiful place you've ever been to? And 9, what boring movie you see? Again, what's the most boring movie? What's the most boring movie you've ever seen? This is the present perfect structure. Okay, the present perfect structure. So, what's the most boring movie you've ever seen, actually? And the last one, where far you've been on vacation. So, remember, far is irregular. So, where's the two forms, the two possible forms, furthest or furthest, farthest, furthest, where's, okay, so where's the furthest you've ever been on vacation? Okay, where's the furthest you've ever been on vacation? What's the furthest? What's the farthest? Furthest. Okay, it's a specific form. Okay, fixed form actually. Well, there you go. Let's read one more time just to check them out. Okay, what's the most difficult language you've ever learned? 3, what's the best restaurant you've ever been to? 4, what's the most expensive gadget you've ever bought? 5, what's the coldest place you've ever visited? 6, what's the longest trip you've ever taken? 7, what's the most delicious food you've ever eaten? 8, what's the most beautiful place you've ever been to? 9, what's the most boring movie you've ever seen? And 10, where's the farthest or furthest you've ever been on vacation? Well, there you go. Let's go for question 9 now. See you there.